Welcome to today's webinar titled Writing a Case Report, Experience from the Field with Rosemary Chunco. This is the final webinar in a successful series of 5 that we're doing with the Massage Therapy Foundation. We started this about 6 weeks ago. We're very excited to complete it today. Now I'm going to introduce Geraldine Cameron, who's actually been narrating this series, and then she in turn will introduce Rosemary. So Geraldine is currently the president-elect of the Massage Therapy Foundation, and she's also a professor in the Department of Research at the National University of Health Science. Geraldine's focus is on complementary and alternative medicine research, that's CAM, and she's been involved in CAM for around 25 years now. She's published extensively in scientific literature, and I have to say she's been an absolute delight to work with. So Geraldine, welcome back for this last webinar.
Well, thanks, Brian, and I just want to say again that you've been wonderful to work with as well, and we are just so thrilled to be working with ABMP, and thank you for hosting this series. As you said, so far we've gone through 4 of the 5 webinars in this series, and we have just been pleasantly surprised by the number of massage therapists who are interested in writing case reports. So we hope that this trend continues. In the past seminars we talked about some of the basics of how to write a case report. Where do we even start? How do you choose a case? How do you choose a journal to write to? And then we moved into how do you write the introduction section and the discussion section. We talked about how do you actually write the case section, what should you include and what shouldn't you include. Last week we had Kim Gorel Stevenson with us, and she talked about something a little bit different, and that is research posters. And so instead of writing a full manuscript, you can present a case in poster format, and there's a very specific format how those are set up. So I think that was an exciting webinar last week as well, and she did a wonderful job. So let's do a poll right now. If you could switch to the next slide, Rosemary. There we go. Okay. So we'd like to know, were you with us last week? Did you view session 4 regarding developing research posters?
Great. So go ahead and click yes or no, and I'll go ahead and close the poll. We got about 75% of you voted. Thank you so much for doing that. And my webinar just got overrode. I'm going to share the results. And actually, we have a lot of new folks. 31% said yes, and 69% said no. So welcome, everyone.
Yes, no kidding. I'm really thrilled that some of you are joining us for the first time, so welcome to you. And for those of us who are continuing, thank you for joining us. Now you can view all of the previous webinars on massagetherapyfoundation.org if you are interested. Writing posters is something that's exciting because you don't have to do a full manuscript. Rather, it's just a poster size, literally what it sounds like. And those can be presented at scientific conferences or in your office or any place where there's a gathering of individuals that you want to talk about your case to. So what we have today is really exciting. We have Rosemary Chunco with us. And what this is the real deal. I don't know if you can see me, but I'm doing that quotation marks with my fingers right now. She's the real deal. She is a practicing massage therapist in the field, and she is in Plano, Texas. And one day she started thinking, you know, I want to write a case report. And she did. She had a lot of input into this, lots of challenges in doing it, just like those of you who are interested in writing a case report might also have. And we thought her experience would be a wonderful thing to share with you so that you can get a better feel for what does this really look like. Now, I'm a full-time researcher and I write lots of articles, and so it's very different for me than for you, those who are out in the field who've never done this before. Now, what Rose did was she wrote it up. She ended up getting the article published in a scientific journal. She also submitted it to the case report contest of the Massage Therapy Foundation and won the gold prize. And so she is a wonderful example of how this can be done. So this is a real thing. This is something that you truly can do. So I just want to say thank you to Rosemary for being here today, and welcome to the webinar series.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's a great honor to be able to talk about this. So, everyone can hear me okay, yeah?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, good. So before I start talking about the actual decision to write a case report, I should give a wee bit of a background into what led up to that. And there were certain seeds that were planted, and they were the seeds of motivation for me to write one. And the first one was I just developed a general interest in research, and that was just generally wanting to know what sort of methodologies did the researchers use in order to find out what massage actually does, and I thought that was kind of fascinating. And I wanted to know about the different types of design that they had in different types of studies, and why did they have certain things in their designs for their different types of studies. And the other thing was I liked the thought of going to the source. In other words, when you have someone else talk about research and they say research has shown X, Y, and Z, I like the thought of being able to go to the source of what they were talking about. So I wanted the ability to go to the research they were referring to. And I wanted to be able to assess the strengths and weaknesses of the research that they were referring to as well. And the reason for this is because we're all human, and as such, we are all have our confirmation bias. So I like being able to go to, even though I can respect someone and what they're saying in their interpretation, and that's also part of being human. I also thought that this was going to be empowering to me. So examining the strengths and weaknesses of the research and just learning about it in general, I thought was going to be to my benefit. I had a feeling that I was going to benefit from it, and I just viewed it as a learning opportunity. So then there was also the major influence of the MTF conference of 2010, which was a great conference. The highlight of the conference for me was one afternoon sitting in a room listening to other massage therapists talk about their case reports. They had various case reports being presented by my peers, and this was the cool thing, because even though there were other parts of the conference that were very cool, these were my peers that were talking about what they were finding in their practice. So there was one of the presenters, actually one of the presenters was last week's webinar presenter, Kim Gorrell. She was getting up and talked about one of her case reports. There was another presenter whose name was Erica Larson, and she was a Gold Award winner of the MTF competition one year. And one of the things that I thought was interesting about it, it was a very, very cool case report too. It was about massage therapy's effects on a prosthetic user with fibular hemimelia. And what I thought was cool is when they were introducing her, she had actually put into the MTF competition one year and got an honorable mention. And then the following year, she got the Gold Award. And I never actually spoke to her, right? But I was thinking to myself, I bet you she had made up her mind that she was going to put in a case report every year until she got that Gold Award. And I don't know if she was actually thinking that, but I decided to adopt that. And after that afternoon, I said to myself, I'm going to write a case report. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm just going to set myself this challenge, right? So this is a shout out to all those that were presenting that afternoon, my fellow peers, right? So the rest of it was great. You had all these big shot researchers and all. To my fellow peer massage therapists at that conference, you guys inspired me, and especially Erica Larson. So that's my shout out to her, even though I've never actually met her. So, but there were some things that I had to deal with beforehand, and the first one was my level of ignorance. Did I actually know what I was doing? I would say that I wasn't very sure of myself at all. And then from that, there was also my level of insecurity. I have a wee acronym called FUD, that's F-U-D, and it stands for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And I would say that I was full of FUD when I first started thinking about this here. And that wasn't just because I didn't really feel as if I knew enough to tackle this. I also had a level of insecurity about my background education. So those two I thought were actually a great challenge to me. There was also a level of isolation that I had to deal with, and I think this is something that therapists that are in a situation that are similar to mine have as a challenge, just an everyday thing from day to day, and that is a lot of us work on our own. We work for ourselves, and we're operating in our own little practices, and we're happy doing that, but there are problems that come about from that level of isolation. Sometimes you just need someone to bounce stuff off, and even though I have massage therapists locally that I have lunch with every so often, they didn't really have that interest in doing a case report or even in research in general. So that level of isolation I thought actually was a challenge, because who do I go to for bouncing stuff off, bouncing ideas off? Or am I even crazy and even thinking about that I could do this? There was a confidence issue there as well. So these were problems that I thought of, that I had to handle personally. So there was also a level of information unavailability. This has changed since I wrote my case report. And it has changed a lot since 2010. So at that time, there wasn't an awful lot of information on even how to do one, how to start off even thinking about doing one. And it has changed a lot over the past couple of years, and it's great to see it. It's great to see the level of interest into equipping therapists with tools and knowledge and a direction on which to go in order to do one. Right? So at that time, I thought there was a level of information unavailability that in relation to massage therapy, I might have been able to get information in other disciplines, but there was very little at that time on massage therapists. When you're confronted with all these things, there's sort of a scary thing on where do I even begin to do this? Where do I start? And that was also a challenge. So we're going to start off with a little poll, and I'm hoping we're going to have very high percentage on this.
Okay, great. So sorry about that little delay there. Once you unmute, there's a little bit of a delay. I thought you were going to explain the. Thought you were going to explain the poll. No worries. All right, I'm going to go ahead and launch it. So, have you read a full case report that has been published in a peer-reviewed journal in the past 2 months? It's very simple, yes or no. See how active you folks are in participating. I'm going to wait for. Perfect. We got about 72%, 74%. So 62% said no. Let me make sure you can see that. There you go. 62% said no, they have not reviewed, and 38% said yes.
Okay. Well, then we'll move on to the next one. Okay. So one of the things that I had to do in order to tackle the whole ignorance level was read an awful lot, right? So at that time, there wasn't an awful lot of case reports actually that I was able to get my hands on, but that has changed over the past 3 years as well, right? Also, at that time, there was no research literacy course that was geared towards massage therapy, but that has also changed because now Education Training Solutions has provided a basic of research literacy course. Oops, sorry. That is provided off the Massage Therapy Foundation site, and they have a very good course that's put together. And even if you think you have pretty good research literacy skills, take it, because I bet you will learn something from it. I also had to sort of teach myself how to use some of the online tools. And the reason why I'm stressing reading, along with more reading, along with some more reading, is because I did have to actually do a lot of reading. So to start off with, what I would advise somebody to do if they're thinking of this is go to the IJTMB, that's an open source journal. It's all free. And do a search for case report, and then do a search for a case study. And that will get you off on the right foot as far as being comfy with the format and the form and what's expected for a case report and a case study. And actually, you will find the case study that I did on ankylosing spondylitis. I'm not actually going to talk about the actual report, the actual case study itself, because it's available online. If you have any questions about it, if you do these searches, you will find it. And if you have any questions about it, my email address is also on there, and you can email me if you have any questions about it. Okay? So then we go on to the next poll. And I'm hoping that people will have been registered with the IJTMB, so I'm interested to see what this is.
Okay, great. So simple yes or no. Are you registered with the IJTMB to receive email notification when there's a new issue published? It's very easy to do if you haven't. And Rosemary, could you just mention that course again, the research literary course? We had someone email in, wanted to get refreshed on that.
Yes, they have a link to it off the Massage Therapy Foundation site. It's actually Education Training Solutions put together the course, and it's Whitney Lowe and Jan Schwartz that actually put it together, and it's really very good. I thought, oh, I'm just going to fly through this here. This is going to be no problem at all. But actually, there were things on there that actually made me think, right? And I like something that's a bit of a challenge, and I thought it was just a first-class course to get people started on it on the research road.
Okay, great.
So I highly recommend it.
Thank you so much. So the results of the poll, Rose, 25% said yes, they are registered, and 75% said no.
Okay, well then I would recommend going to the IJTMB and registering, because then you will get notification of when there is a new issue of it, and that's very handy because you'll get notification of it in your email, and then you can go to it and see if there's anything of interest in it. Usually they have pretty good editorials as well, you know, so it's a very good resource for people to use. So I advise everybody to go on to it. You know, it's free, so you just sign up. They will send you an email notification whenever there's a new one, and there will probably be times whenever you'll say, oh yes, that looks like a good one there, I'll go off and read that. You might not want to read the whole thing, the whole edition from start to finish, but I bet you people will benefit from signing up for that. So, okay. So, as part of the reading, right, and there will be a lot of reading to start off with, but, you know, if you just do it small chunks at a time, right, I would advise just putting it on your schedule just to learn a wee bit about research, you know, maybe even two or three times a week, put off half an hour just to go off and read about stuff. As you're doing that, you're going to be doing searches for articles, and it's a pretty good idea to get organized with that. And there was a wee tool that is called Zotero, and it's a free browser-based tool that will help people organize, collect, and cite research, and you can also write notes on it. So rather than printing out loads of articles, I would advise just going that route where you have some sort of software tool to help you organize it and tag and cross-reference. Mendeley is another cloud-based tool. I haven't used it all that much, but I preferred Zotero just because I got used to it. Evernote is also very handy for organizing tools, organizing links and your thoughts and notes on anything. When you're making notes on this, it's this also applies to any sort of literature at all. You might want to make a note about what you liked about a case report, for example. There are some case reports that I like more than others, and that's I really like case reports that I can use immediately in my practice for clients that I see or clients that I know that I'm going to see, right? And that's getting back to what Geraldine was talking to in the series about, you know, who is your intended audience. I like case reports where the intended audience are other massage therapists, but your audience can actually be different according to what the topic is, right? So very often when you're trying to assess either your literature in your background literature or other case reports, it's good just to say, what did you like about it? What didn't I understand? And then you can come back to it later. What do I need to do some more research on? And whenever you start off doing this here, you might make too long a list of that there. Just pick out the most important points, right? You don't need to know just to launch yourself into statistical analysis. For example, I would leave it till later on until you're used to the lingo that's used. You might want to look up some references. You might actually be surprised about that because sometimes the references in some of the published research doesn't actually match what they were supposed to be referring to. So, and then over time, you will get used to the lingo, and I call it researchese because in the research world, they have their own language, right? So, for example, they love their variables. They have their dependent variables, their independent variables, and then there's the confounding variables. They love validity. They're all about the external, internal validity. Oh, and then they have instrument validity and construct validity, right? And there are certain words that they use that mean something different from what it would be in regular life, like significance means something completely different than the research world. When I first came across this whole language that they use, I nearly threw in the towel, to be honest, and said, I have no idea what I'm reading here. This is like reading a foreign language. I have no idea about this here. I may as well just give up. But then I thought about whenever I was at massage school, right? And I know that other therapists can relate to this, right? So if I was to say to another therapist, you know the way that sartorius muscle has its origin in the anterior superior iliac spine and how it runs obliquely across the anterior thigh in an inferior-medial direction, right? So if I would say it to another therapist, I know that they know what I'm talking about, right? So, but if I was to say to a therapist that was at the first day at massage school, they would look at me as if I had two heads, right? So it's all just a matter of eating the elephant one bite at a time and getting used to the researchese, getting used to the lingo, and it does come over time, but it does take some dedication to try to teach yourself the lingo. So just keep at it and don't get put off by the fact that you will get bombarded with this whole new language whenever you start off. I would recommend getting Martha Brown Maynard's book. She puts things into plain English. I think Ruth mentioned that in one of the webinars as well. And it's just a matter of exposing yourself to it, and over time you'll get used to the research ease. The other thing is, everybody should take their time about this here, just getting on the research road and taking it one step at a time. And the other thing is, you have to be aware of the fact, and I'm continually aware of the fact, that learning about research isn't just a case of taking a course and that's it. I don't need to learn anymore. It's actually something that it's an iterative process. It's never going to stop. It's going to go on and on forever. I'm never going to stop learning about it. And even whenever you get to grips with most of being able to interpret the papers and being able to interpret even some of the statistics, right? You still have to keep up to date with what is continually coming out of the conduit that comes from the research world, because there's new research continually being put out, right? So it's not just a one-time thing of a study back in 2010 showed X, Y, and Z. There may be a new study that comes out that says something different, that may have more evidence tied to it. So it never stops. Okay, so this is part of the solutions, right? So that was the ignorance part. The insecurity actually starts to go away when I had more exposure to the material. And as you get more exposure to the material, you can't just uncritically accept everything that is presented to you. So the critical thinking that you're employing whenever you're looking at the research and trying to assess the strengths and weaknesses with every piece of literature out there, it actually makes you more confident in what you're doing. You feel less insecure about it, right? And then you get to know more about the research use. Your comfort level gets better. So you get, the insecurity starts to go away just with more exposure and applying critical thinking. I think some people think critical thinking might be a negative thing, but I don't view it as such. Critical thinking is all about improving our own way of thinking and analyzing information. It's not about judging anything else other than our own way of thinking. So isolation. This is where the internet is pretty good. I actually used to be in communication with Kim Goral quite a bit, actually, and she advised me on a couple of books to read. Whenever I first started talking to people online or communicating with people online. And I also stumbled across a mentor who sort of was advising me, you know, you should really apply yourself to maybe doing a case report at some stage. So having someone that's involved in the research world say, you know, you should really think about that is actually a big boost. And then when you have mentors, and the mentors, it doesn't even have to be one mentor, it can be various mentors in different ways that will help you with this here. I actually think that there is had a huge impact on me and my confidence levels on actually doing a case report. So with that in mind, we now go on to, oh no, we don't. I thought we had another poll there. So anyway, information unavailability. The tools that I use, Google Scholar is one that is another online tool, and it's basically a search tool that is specifically designed for finding scholarly literature. So it, along with PubMed, is two things that everybody should get to have some sort of confidence level with as far as finding information. As time went on, I got to be better at getting the information that I needed faster, right? So that's just a matter of just keeping on at it, you know, learning how to refine your search terms, for example, right? I also got to be better at judging the quality of published studies, and that is something that is ongoing. This is something that somebody mentioned at one stage, and that is if you can't get your hand on the full text of an article, sometimes the abstract is nowhere near there's nowhere near to give you all the information that you need. You can actually email the researchers, and they might get you the full text. And you will actually probably be pretty amazed at the response from that there, because whenever I first started that, I thought, oh, these people are going to think, who is she emailing me about this here? But they're actually very helpful, and the researchers aren't near as scary as what I initially thought. So, and I think they're also quite chuffed that you're interested in their work. When I was doing the case report, I had to email someone that had put up a poster, right? So this relates to also to Kim's webinar last week. Somebody had done a poster at a big national conference a few years before about ankylosing spondylitis, and I happened to stumble across the fact that they had a poster of this online. So then I had to email them and say, have you got any more information on that? They never actually got the full study published. They could send me the abstract again, but I'd already come across that. But they could also tell me a couple more things that were helpful to me. So don't be afraid to email researchers if you're having difficulty with anything. The other thing is that the MTF website and the MTF team are also very helpful whenever it comes to finding out information. I'm probably a wee bit biased because I think the MTF folk are all very groovy. But this is something that I found very helpful whenever I was doing mine as well. The MTF website has changed in the past couple of years, but it's also pretty brilliant. So, okay, so the topic itself. So that was all the challenges. So then a lot of people say, well, how did you find out what you were going to do your case report on? Mine was just with someone that I had come across in my practice, right? So this lady was walking into the building where my practice is one day, and she obviously had a sore back. So I went up to talk to her and give her my card, and it was then that she told me that she had ankylosing spondylitis. Now, normally I would, after talking to her, I would just go off and look at some books to see what the books had to say about AS and massage. But because I had started looking at research, I also went and did a background literature search on it. And that's when I found out that there was very little on massage and AS itself. I could find out a lot of information from other disciplines, for example, physical therapy. And I even had balneal therapy, had some literature on it, but there was very little on massage and AF. I did come across tools that could be useful to me in measuring whether or not I was actually helping this client. So these were VAS measurements. So it's VAS stands for Visual Analog Scale, and it's very easy to use. You know, it's just a 100-millimeter line, and basically the client marks on it where they are in a line. For example, pain could be no pain to extreme pain, right? And the ones that I picked were actually a subset of the BAF indices, and the BAF indices are used in medical practice to assess the progress of the disease. So in my background literature search, I actually found them, right? And then I thought about, after the client came, the measurements and the tools that I was using in order to make those measurements, I picked the ones that matched her issues, right? So this is one thing that we need to be careful of. It also has to be, you know, we can't just go, oh, research, research, research. It's all about the research, right? And what are we measuring? It's taking what the information that the research is showing and applying it to that particular client, right? So the measurements that I used were matching the goals of the client, and I took those measurements from the BAF indices, which I found in the background literature search. So it was all very helpful, right? This next one is getting a wee star to it next to the big red letters, right? incorporating those measurements and putting them into my soap notes was actually quite important. And here's something else that I had to do. I had to completely redo my whole way of doing soap notes. And this is, part of this came about because I realized that the way that I was doing soap notes was not good enough. And I had to pretty much train myself on how to write good soap notes. And this came as a result of I was never really taught how to write good soap notes. I was never really taught how to do good assessments either, right? This whole area, I think, could be a whole course in itself, because we should look at it as any client that we have, right? We should be able to write a case report on that client just from the measurements that we're making on our soap notes, right? So that was something that I had to work on, and I had to have an iterative way of improving it, right? So I would do one set that I would think that one way of doing soap notes that I thought was fine, and then it actually ended up where I actually now have, if somebody wants, if I want to measure something, I have a laminated vase that I can use, and they can fill in at the beginning of their session. And then I record that whenever they're getting on the table. I just take a little measuring thing and measure it and then put it into the soaps. But that's just one example of how I had to change the way that I was doing things. And this was all as a result of looking at the research and realizing my soap notes need to be better. The way that I measure stuff needs to be better. I need to have a complete overhaul, right? After getting all the information, I had to sort of consolidate everything together, right? And the other thing was, for my particular case report, I had a high level of client interaction in the recording of the measurements. In other words, they had a daily diary that they had to fill out. But so communicating to them what was needed had to be very clear, and I also had to get the consent, right, to do this here, because that is an ethical necessity that we need to have the consent to do it, right? So, but communicating what needed to happen, and I also had to be clear that it's better for the client to be very honest about this here, because the only way that I'm going to get the information that I need is if they're very honest. I don't want them putting anything in there or lying about them feeling better, because it's not to my advantage or anything. That, you know, they have to be very honest about how they're feeling, right? Okay, so the write-up. The write-up was a long process, right? And because of that, I would advise anyone to give plenty of time for it. I started off with a skeleton case report in which I had the headings, and then underneath the headings I had a load of little questions that I had to make sure that I had coverage within each of the sections, right? And then I ripped out those little questions. I put them in red actually under each of them, so I called that a skeleton case report. Karen Bollinger actually had something in her webinar which I think was actually better than mine. It was sent out after. If you attended that, you would have got a copy of this, something similar, where she actually said what should be in each section. So I had something similar to that, but it wasn't quite as good, and that kept me on track. I used the organizational tools that I talked about before. Here's what I advise anyone to do. No matter what you're doing with it, you know, you could be submitting to a journal or you could be submitting it into the competition. Be sure to read the guidelines multiple times, and here's the thing, you should probably read them before you even start writing, right? So if you're submitting to a journal, each journal has their own requirements on what is acceptable, right? So they will have requirements, say, on word count. You know, the abstract, for example, has to be within a certain word count range, and the whole case report has to be within a certain word count range. The MTF competition has very specific guidelines on what's required for that, right? So read it multiple times. I actually made the mistake of just reading it a couple of times and thinking, nah, I have got it, right? But then when it came to actually putting it in again, I had to read it again and realized I had missed something. So read it before you even start, highlight some things in it, and then read it again at the end. Make sure you've got all the points actually hit, right? Leave enough time. I actually was quite rushed at the end of mine, so I would advise leaving enough time. Don't do it all at once, right? So do it over a space of a number of days. It's better if you do a bit and then come back later with a fresh eye. And there may be some parts of it that you will find are quite more challenging to write than others. And put your work on a schedule in order to work on it. I know that most of us work by schedules, and we don't like to have schedules outside of our work. At least I don't. But actually, it's better if you actually put the work of when am I going to work on my case report, you know, the actual write-up, put it on schedule. Don't try to write the references on your own. The tools can do that for you, Zotero being one of them. Also, most difficult areas to write, I would advise tackling them over a number of days, right? The most difficult area that I had to write was the abstract. Now, if you remember, in the abstract, it's like a synopsis of the whole case report. You have your introduction, the case description, results and discussion, all in one synopsis. And I actually thought it was quite hard because you kind of have to sum everything up to where the reader can get a good gist of what your case report is like all in one part. So I would advise doing that over a number of days and coming back with it with a fresh eye. I would also advise leaving the abstract till last because you've already got all the main points written, right? And then write your abstract over a number of days after you've got all the rest of it written. Review it multiple times. It's also quite good to get somebody who's quite good with editing to look at it. I had a mentor who was really good at editing, and he was able to polish it up, and he had some really good input to make it look better. Then you're going to have to revise it from that, right? And then after that, read it out loud to your pets. This is something that I learned years ago. If you need something that's really polished and good, if you read it out loud to either your pets or someone else, you will probably find something that can be tweaked to make it better. Right. Okay, here's the mentor question, and I'm very interested to see what people think about this. So we're having a poll now on would having a research mentor available to you be a deciding factor.
Great. Thank you, Rosemary. I was answering some questions. I appreciate that. So would you have a research mentor available to you? Would that be a deciding factor for you? So yes or no? I think it might be. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. We got, great, over 60%. So Rosemary, 82% said yes, they would.
Okay, good.
And
yes.
18% said no.
Yes, yes. So I think this sort of hookup with the provision of mentors would actually be a pretty good idea. You know, I sort of stumbled across mine, and it may be that people will stumble across a mentor just to give them a hand with stuff, but I think having a mentor can have a great influence on people's confidence levels.
And Rosemary,
so, yes?
I mean, where would one even search for a mentor?
Well, I stumbled across mine online, and actually I would actually, even though she probably doesn't know it, but Kim was actually one of my mentors to start off with, you know, the last week's presenter. So I would use online resources to see if you can find one online. You may even find one on Facebook, but that's something that the MTF or Geraldine might have an answer to actually about how do you find a mentor. You can find them at the conferences. Would be another good way to find one. on discussion boards online. Yeah, actually finding one at the conference would be a good way of finding one, because there's just a mindset. You know, a mentor is, okay, somebody that knows more than you, but I also think that you have to have a similar mindset about something. Research conference is you're definitely going to find one there, because they all have that research mindset. So I bet there are a lot of people that would help with that at a conference. So.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to cover some quick reasons from a personal standpoint for writing a case report, right? And although we've already heard from the other webinars in the series about why we should be writing them, you know, from the massage world and the research world, and why we should be writing one from the big picture standpoint. From a personal standpoint, here's what's going to happen if you do put yourself through this. You're actually going to find that it's going to make you better at your job, right? You're also going to find that your workflows and your information gathering methods are going to change, and it's going to be for the better. At least this is what I found. And it's also a way to give back. So I think that therapists in general are givers. We like to give. A lot of us volunteer either with different organizations or with things like going and giving chair massage at different places, you know, like battered women's shelters and what have you. So there's a different level of, it's a different way to give back when you write a case report, but it's also a very satisfying way to give back. And I think it suits a certain type of personality. So if you're listening to this webinar and you've been listening to the series, I'd be willing to bet that you have that type of personality, because if you didn't, then you wouldn't be listening to the webinar series. So it's a way to give back that suits a certain type of personality type, is the way that I look at it. And you will probably have a similar type of personality to me. So okay, the next bullet is informed therapeutic decision-making. This is one of my all-time favorite phrases, and I stole it from Paul Finch, who wrote an article that was published in the JBMT, and it was entitled The Evidence Funnel. The evidence funnel is another model that's slightly different from the evidence pyramid that Geraldine talked about in the first webinar. And he used that phrase in it, and I looked at it for about 2 minutes, and I said, I just love that phrase, because if you just change that first word to uninformed therapeutic decision-making, well, we definitely don't want that. Misinformed therapeutic decision-making, well, we don't want that either, but sometimes I wonder if I'm actually doing that. By using research in your practice, by forcing yourself to pay attention to it, you are actually building on an informed therapeutic decision-making. So that should be the goal of every therapist, right? So I just wanted to throw that out there. And again, his name is Paul Finch, and it was the evidence funnel. You could actually try emailing him if you really wanted to get your hands on that article. Okay, here's another thing. If you write a case report, it's going to be an exercise in critical thinking. And when you improve your own thinking about something, you're obviously going to benefit from that, right? You're going to get a high level of satisfaction, verging on smugness. There's my wee smug smiley face there. So you can be smug. You allow yourself to be smug for about an hour after you've submitted it. Remember, I had pushed this, I had clicked on the submit button for the MTF competition, and I thought, okay, they might think it's terrible. I may not even get an honorable mention, but I tried, and I'm pretty satisfied with myself that I've actually done it, right? So you'll get some satisfaction from that. And here's the other thing. If you are a gold award winner with the MTF competition, you'll get a very nice monetary prize, right? And you should check out how much. And you'll also get the opportunity to go to a national conference and present your findings and you'll get to meet a lot of like-minded people, and you'll get to meet a lot of people from the MTF, and like I said, they're very high on the groovy scale. And you'll also get to meet people that normally I've read their books, and it's sort of, oh my goodness, there's Whitney Lowe, and there's these other people that I have admired from afar, and you get to meet a lot of very, very cool people. So that's very exciting in itself, not just the prize, but the opportunity to go and talk about your findings in front of your peers, and to get to meet a lot of very cool people at a national conference is also very cool. Okay, so information sharing with other massage therapists in a concise, objective way. We have that pretty much already covered, right? So you're not going to find this in any other situation. You're not going to find this in a class, for example. Even the teacher that's describing a case will not get to the level of detail that you can in a case report. It has been scrutinized and reviewed by other people. So this is also a good thing, because you want it to be scrutinized. And a lot of people are fearful of going through that review process whenever they're getting something published. But actually, it's a good thing that it's reviewed, because what they're doing is, when they accept it with necessary updates, they're actually making the case report better. So people should not be fearful of that whole review process. Actually, I had an editorial published before I had the case report published. And it was harder to do the updates from that, because the editorial was more opinion-based, whereas a case report is an objective report. So it should be pretty straightforward to be able to do the updates from the review, and they're actually helping you. If you get a lot of feedback, that's actually a good thing, because it's making the report better. It reflects our world. So it reflects our clinical decision-making and our outcomes. The way I look at it, it's like a Vulcan mind meld on a pier, so you can get inside their head of your fellow massage therapist and know why they are doing something, why they decided to do something in their practice. If it's published in an open access journal like the IJCMB, everybody can see it for free. And you can get very precise, fast information on a condition. For example, if you had someone come in with ankylosing spondylitis, I would hope that in your literature search that you would actually come across my little case report. Now, you shouldn't just accept it as being perfect. There are things that are wrong with it. It has its strengths and weaknesses. It's also been published a couple of years ago, so you'll need to look to see what's been published since then. But I would hope that some of the information that is provided in it might help you in handling your client but with the same condition. Although I have to say that ankylosing spondylitis has a wide range of conditions and are different in each gender. Okay, so just to wrap up, I have a little ebook written that pretty much talks about most of the things that I've talked about on here, but it has a little more added to it, and at the back of it, it has a whole list of resources that anybody can use in order to help them on the road to writing a case report. So that's on a site called txmassageforum.com. That's a site just for Texas massage therapists, but anybody can go to it. The ebook is free. I also have a little video in one of my blog posts on using doTERRA, so you can go there and look at that. The Massage Therapy Foundation website is also brilliant. It's also been updated over the past couple of years, and they have so much information on there. It's just great. So kudos to the MTF for keeping it so up to date and for providing all that great information. If you're thinking of it, here's the thing. If you're thinking of writing a case report, the bottom line is, if I can do it, anybody can. And the wee baby with the wee determined face on them also thinks that you can do it. So don't be thinking that you're alone in this as well. If you want to shoot me an email to get advice on something, if I don't know the answer to it, I know that I can put you in touch with somebody else that might be able to help you with it. So, but basically, I have a lot of faith in my fellow massage therapists that they can do this. So, just give it a shot and see what you can achieve, and I can guarantee you're going to benefit from it no matter what happens. So with that, I'm going to ask if anybody has any questions.
Well, Rosemary, that was lovely. Now, I loved your Irish accent, of course. Some people emailed in and wanted to know what accent was that. So not only did I love that, but also your choice of words. I feel much more smug now and groovy having shared that Vulcan mind meld with you to share some of your words. It was really lovely. Well, you can certainly tell that you lived and breathed the process. I mean, that's very evident throughout your experience, and I thank you for sharing that. Now, a couple questions came in. Rosemary, you talked about taking a break from it occasionally and going back to review. Now, how many hours or weeks did it actually take you from start to finish?
I would say it took about 10 days altogether. But I made the mistake of leaving it up to the last minute as well. So, but yeah, going away and coming back, and then it also depended on my frame of mind whenever I was going back to it. But I have to warn people that you will probably get sick looking at it. I mean, I remember sitting in the office and my husband was sitting next to me, and I was saying, I'm so sick of looking at this thing, and it's going to bore people to tears. And he said something like, you know, so it's only because you've been looking at it for days, you know. So I was spending probably about an hour to 60 minutes. People don't understand whenever I say an hour. 60 minutes to 2 hours a day over about 10 days, maybe some more later on. There's some parts of it that are a lot easier than others, like the results section. I just used Excel to create the graphs, and it didn't take that long to write up at all because Excel did it all for me, and then I just had to comment on it. But other parts of it, it took quite a while. You know, the introduction section took quite a while. The client profile, I actually thought it was quite easy as well because I just had to give a picture of the client, and I didn't find it that hard. So, okay. But the abstract, yeah, it took quite a while.
Mm-hmm. So that leads us into the next question. So what was the most difficult part for you? You mentioned the introduction and the abstract. Yeah?
Yeah, the abstract took quite a while. Well, you know, the other part was trying to give the reasons for doing what I did. In other words, I had my plan, the treatment plan on why I was doing what I was doing for this particular client. Mm-hmm. And actually trying to explain that there is actually quite difficult as well, right? Mm-hmm. So this is, you know, linking the two together, and then it all has to go back to the client as well. You know, it has to be according to the goals of the client. Why did I do what I did was actually quite difficult to explain as well.
Right, right. So did you have a?
You have to
go ahead.
You have to give justification, right? It has to be. You can't just pull something out of the air. It has to be a good logical justification on why you did it.
Right. Well, I'm glad you persevered. And a few folks are asking about what scientific journal that you actually submitted and published your paper in.
It was the IJTMB. So
okay,
if,
great.
If people go and do search for the search for case study and case report, the way I did it, one of the beginning slides, you'll actually find it. You'll actually find the published case report.
Okay, great.
I like the open access journals because you don't have to pay to get the information, right? So I decided to go with the IJTMB because I wanted to encourage other therapists to go that way as well because it's all free, right? So.
Mm-hmm. Well, great. So that's ijtmb.org for those folks that want to go check it out. Now, I suppose that was probably when you got to that low point and had the difficulty writing the intro and the abstract, that's a good time to reach out to your mentors.
Yeah, the mentor that did the Now, I didn't have an advisor on the whole thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had, you can also get an advisor on it, right? If you need an advisor, it's actually a good idea to get an advisor. I didn't have an advisor for the actual work itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thinking back on it, it's probably something that I should have done. I had a mentor, a research mentor, who is very good at editing, that I sent it off to him. Now, one of the things I asked him was, are you sure that the abstract is up to scratch, right? Now, he is a researcher as well, right? So he seemed to think that the abstract was okay, but that is also came about just from reading so many abstracts about, you know, and what do I like about certain abstracts over another.
Okay.
So yeah, I thought the abstract was difficult to write, but that may not be the case for every therapist, but maybe other therapists will find that a different section is harder to write. It's just that that's what I found personally, just because it had to be a good synopsis.
Okay, great. And I just want to point out, you know, you talked about mentors and finding them at conferences, and I just want to point out that the Massage Therapy Foundation is having an upcoming conference in April. It's April 25, 6, and 7. That's in Boston, and I am going to go to their website afterwards, so stay tuned for that, and I'll show you how to sign up for that. Now, moving on, Rosemary, some people wanted to know about the tools that you used for reference information. Can you review those, please?
Yeah, if you go to Zotero, now I'm talking about free tools here. Actually, there's a little video on my blog that talks about Zotero, but Zotero will export citations and the references according to whatever sort of format that you need, right? So different journals require specific formats for the references, right? So I would say to someone, don't write the references on your own, you know, just sitting keying it in. Play with Zotero and also play with Word or whatever it is you're editing it in to make sure that you're comfy with using the tools to make the references for you. Zotero will actually create the reference for you, and then you just copy and paste it into Word. Okay,
great. Another item, Rosemary, you mentioned on enhancing your SOAP notes. Can you give an example of that? Did you add measurements, or how did you embellish those?
Yes. I mean, the measurements was the big thing, right? Before, I wasn't given enough detail in my SOAP notes about what was going on with the client, and then I actually changed some of the way that I was asking questions. And then the recording of that there, and that's maybe because I kind of like quantitative research. Like, for example, okay, you may have a qualitative question of how are you sleeping, and they'll say, oh, well, or not so good, whatever. But then you could also throw in how many hours a night are you sleeping, and then you take a record of that there. So I also start to throw in a quantitative question as well as a qualitative, right? And that depends on the client as well. But like I said, with the measurements, I have this laminated vase that I can use for anything, and I can put no fatigue to extreme fatigue, say at the other end, if it's somebody who's dealing with fatigue, and get them to mark it with a marker, and then I wipe it off, and I change it from client to client according to whatever I want to measure. Right? It could be pain for one, level of fatigue, fitness for another, whatever, right? So having good SOAP notes is a pretty big thing, and I was never really taught how to do it well, so I pretty much had to teach myself. But Diana Thompson's book is very good, and I think she actually also has some classes that she gives on that. But yeah, that's a pretty big one, because having good SOAP notes and being able to translate those into a case report is pretty important. So anyway, that's just a couple of examples of it.
Right. Well, Rosemary, thank you so much. A couple of people emailed in. They wanted to connect with you by email. Are you open to sharing your email address to everybody?
Yeah, it's rchunco@hotmail.com, so it's rchunco@hotmail.com, and just ping me. You can also find me on Facebook. If they want to friend me on Facebook, that's fine as well, although sometimes I'm a wee bit crude on Facebook, so you just have to ignore that. But yes, I be happy to be happy to link up with people if they want to have some more information, or if they just want to have somebody motivating them. I'll just say, you know, yeah, you can do it. So
beautiful.
I'd be happy to link up with you.
You know, I think you just developed a whole posse of so you can be a mentor too. Okay.
Oh, I don't know about being a mentor. I might be able to pass them on to another mentor. I give them as much help as I can. Put it that way.
Okay, mentor, advisor, cheerleader. One of those will definitely work. So. Well, Rosemary, thank you. That was really a lovely presentation, and thanks so much for sharing your, personal experience, because that's really what drives it home. You're a massage therapist like us, and we just want to, do good, and you've just walked us through the process and made it very realistic and doable. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
So, Geraldine, I have a question for you, dear, if you would unmute yourself, just to finish the series and finish this webinar here. Marla emailed in, and I think this applies, it's kind of broad across all the webinars. So she wants to know about energy exchanges, right? So, and particularly, how do you account for those in a case report or a case study? Because obviously every session is different, and energy exchanges influence the outcome. How is that compensated for?
Is she an energy therapist, or just in terms of doing body work, there is this connection? Do you happen to know?
Let's assume she's an energy therapist, but how do we address the connection each time? Because doesn't that vary between sessions?
Yeah. And that's one of the things that any complementary therapy that involves touching a patient or a client, there's some sort of a transfer going on there, some sort of a connection, and it's not something that research has really been able to measure in the past. And so unless we can measure it, it's very difficult to talk about and to express what exactly happened. So if she feels as though that's what was the most beneficial to the client, I mean, she can discuss, her feelings and perceptions about that, but unfortunately it's not something that we can measure yet.
Right.
Good question, though.
It's a great question. That's why I wanted to pose it, kind of complete the series, because there are a lot of unknown variables, right? So we do what we can and measure what we can and move on. And go ahead, sweetie.
Can I say one other thing about that? One of the good things about writing case reports is researchers read them, and it leads to new research questions and that we can do bigger studies on. And so as a therapist, if she feels as though there's something in a certain form of touch or energy work or something like that, I strongly encourage her to write a case report and do the best job that she can at explaining it, because even if there isn't a way right now to measure it, it might spur on a researcher to move that research kind of up the pyramid of hierarchy of research study designs to something bigger, and it might lead to something. So don't be fearful of writing a case report about something that hasn't been written about before.
Right. Could discover the Higgs boson, right?
Exactly.
Well, great. Well, I just also want to close by sharing that Marilyn sent in that you both are very high on the groovy scale yourselves. So.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Marilyn.
So, Geraldine, thank you so much for a wonderful series. As I said in the beginning, it was a delight to work with you. Amazingly sharp and have an amazing amount of information. So, thank you again. I'm going to take folks now to the Massage Therapy Foundation website and then on to OEC for ABMP. So thank you again, Marilyn, Rosemary. Be well. Have a beautiful day. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and take back control, and I'll pull up my screen. Let's go to Massage Therapy Foundation website first. And this will only take about 3 minutes. I know some of you folks are on lunch and want to get back to your classes. So this is the MTF, massagetherapyfoundation.org. On the right-hand side here, you can see writing case reports. It's under their blog. If you were to click there, you could find links to the recordings, and I'll also show you how to get those on ABMP site. Right here is the International Conference, Massage Therapy Conference that I referenced earlier. It's April 25, 6, and 7, so you could register for that now. It's a great way to connect with advisors and mentors, find out about how the process actually works, get to meet to use Rosemary's words, groovy presenters like Whitney Lowe and Tom Myers. So a great way to do that. They have the research tool that you can download. So a wonderful website. Please check that out. Now back to ABMP site. Let's go ahead and start fresh so you know how to do it. It's abmp.com, and that will open up this page, and we're going to scroll down to ABMP Professional Events, Webinars, and CE. I'm going to go ahead and click there. Now I'm going to scroll down. You can see some of the live workshops and webinars. You can check out some of the upcoming webinars under our practitioners calendar, or if you're an educator or a school owner, you can go under Educator's Calendar. But we're going to click on Learn More under Archived Webinars. And that will take you to our Online Education Center. If you're a member, you can go ahead and log in with your email address and your password. And if you're not a member, you can go directly to abmpeducationcenter.com. You can set up an account if you haven't done so already, or if you have visited there, all you do is click on Sign In and go there. All right, so that's going to open up this page, and we're going to click on View Webinars. It's in the brown navigation bar. And the Writing a Case Report series is right at the very top. Very easy to find. All 5 webinars are there. The 4 recordings, let me just scroll up there. Sorry, I've got a trigger finger. The 4 recorded webinars, all you do is click on the title. So let's click on last week's Writing a Case Report Research Posters. And you can see it's going to open up a viewing screen, this black screen here, and you just click on the arrow button to watch it. Okay? And if you wanted to print the slides beforehand so that you could watch or take notes on the slides, you just click right here under Additional Resources. That will open up a PDF for you. All right? Now let's say you wanted to get the CE hour for today. So we'll go back to View Webinars, and it will say Purchase the quiz for $12. Now that is the member price. You see it's right here, so I'll go ahead and click there. That will open up a shopping cart. Members, it's $35 for you, and that allows you to watch the webinar and also take the quiz. And it's a 5-question multiple choice quiz. And then what you'll do once you complete that, you see you just go to shopping cart, you'll click on My Courses and Quizzes, also on this brown navigation bar. And you click on Webinar Quizzes. That will give you a link to the 5-question quiz. When you complete it, then you click on Transcript. There'll be a link right here that says Certificate, and you can print your certificate, or you can email it to yourself, to your state board, to NCB, as you like. All right? Let me just take another 30 seconds and show you some of our other webinars that are recorded in case you're on the fence about becoming a member. It's a great member benefit. We've got today's 110th webinar that we'll have posted. And I'm just going to cheat a little bit and go to this Jump to Category. You can see we have got webinars for professionals, webinars for instructors, and webinars for schools is how we break them apart. We've got a great ethics series that kind of transcends all boundaries, so they're great for everyone. Got a great business fitness, about 13 webinars on enhancing your and growing your business practice. Webinars for instructors, we did a great series last year with Ann Williams, our Director of Education. There are 8 webinars there. And then body reading with Tom Myers, massage technique at work. These are orthopedic specialties with Whitney Lowe. Myofascial techniques with Till Lukaw. We've got some upcoming webinars with him I'd like to show you in a second. And then unraveling the mystery of the body with Dr. Ben Benjamin. So great library, great source of information. And again, they're all free if you're a member. All right, so I'll go back to my slideshow. We'll scroll down. We covered most of that. I do want to show you next week's webinar. If you are an ABMP member, we have a great question and answer webinar next Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. Mountain. If you've got a question about your member benefits or about your business fitness tools that we referred to earlier, tune in. We're going to have our president, Les Sweeney. He's going to be online, and Jenny Good is our Director of Member Development. Kristen Coverly is our Education Facilitator and organizing this webinar, and also Abram Herbin. He's our social media coordinator, so you probably had some correspondence with him. This is the Body Mind series I referenced with Till Lukaw. The next webinar is April 3rd, so I guess that's about 2 weeks from now, and you can register for those on abmp.com under upcoming webinars. I showed you that. And the continuation of the myofascial series. So the next one in that series is May 22nd. So great. So thanks so much for tuning in today. Please like us on Facebook. You get notifications on upcoming webinars and other workshops that we have going on when webinars are posted. And lastly, thank you so much for tuning in today. We've got 53 dedicated people here to serve you, serve the profession. So we appreciate taking the time, and hopefully it's inspired you. This whole series has inspired you to really take the time and write a case report and really submit it and benefit all of those from your own personal experience. It's a valuable profession we have, and it's great to share. So thanks so much for tuning in today.